Hey everyone, another diversion from things I'd rather be doing. I'm going to try and fix my Pyle car stereo. I think they named it Pyle for a reason. As my title will indicate, it is a pile of, well, I won't say. I was in the middle of trying to fix this stereo. Well, this part of the stereo for my outdoor use, but I'm just so sick of this thing. The whole problem is with the front faceplate, especially during the cold, and why you have to have this anti-theft front faceplate for this thing. I don't know, because you gotta be out of your mind if you stole the thing. But that connector there, right there, every time you press a button on the front panel, especially when it's cold, the thing wigs out and I can't use the USB. And I listen to a lot of things on this, well, in my car I should say. It's been rather difficult because once you get it working, you're back to square one wherever you were. You gotta find a MP3 that you're playing, and then you gotta scroll through it to where you're at, and yada yada. So anyhow, this will be the saga of me taking hard wiring this cable here to the front faceplate, and hopefully I won't have problems with that USB too, because that seems like that's a little squirrely in itself. But I know for a fact whenever you press this, any button on this thing, because of this poor connector here, it just wigs out. Alright, so that wasn't too bad getting that off. Just a couple screws, a couple tabs, and now I've got to get the rest of it apart. I'm going to pull the board out. It's 18, at least 18 connection points on that connector there. I'm not sure if they're all even being used. I'll check that out. But most of the air in this just tiny little car stereo. So anyhow, I'll disassemble the rest of it. Okay, so the hardest part of getting this board out was these two tabs right here. They were soldered to the board. That'll come out too well, but right there, soldered there. Just had to desolder those, and out come the board. Now I'm going to remove this connector and get 17 conductors out of this. Well, first I'll figure out how many I'm actually using on there, but that'll be the next step. Alright, so since this has become an all or nothing proposition for me, in other words, if this don't fix, if this thing's going in the can, I just took the Dremel and I cut this thing off. I wish this camera was better. Anyhow, there's pins sticking up still. I'm going to have to remove all those, and then I'll put my cable in there. On to the next step, clean this up and get those pins out. Alright, I'll never be able to show how clean those holes are now for that, but take my word for it. The old solder sucker did a number on that, but I failed to take into account that I need an additional conductor for the ground. Both ends of this connector were ground, and that attached to the actual outside of this thing. So I need 18 conductors. That's the next step. Alright, so I'm pleased how this turned out. I'm going to take and actually put a little pigtail on the front panel for the USB. Instead of having the thumb drive stick straight out, I'm going to just have one of these dangling out. It's kind of hard to describe, but yeah, I'll see after I'm done. On the phase, well, I don't know what phase this is at this point. Phase 5, 6, something like that. Okay, so the next step in this project, before I connect this cable to the front faceplate, I'm going to hook this pigtail in place of that. Actually, this will still be functional because I'm going to directly solder to the back side there where these 4 pins are and tie the ground to the appropriate place and drill a hole right through there and epoxy this. And so this thing is going to kind of be dangling out right around there. It's going to be dangling out, and I'm doing that because I also noticed there was a problem with this. Seemed like it's another bad connector, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and do that while I'm at it. But I need to do this before I do that. I got a little bit of slack here, but I don't have a lot of room to play around because this latch is right here, so I can't really fold any slack up in here. So I'm going to just tuck it in here. This is obviously too long. I'll have to cut this down. And then I think I'm just going to solder to these pins right here. That's probably not going to come out very well. Rather than remove this connector, I think, as you can see where they're all soldered across there, I think I'm just going to try and solder to those rather than try and remove this. But maybe not. We'll just have to look at that a little bit closer. So, alright, that's the next step, is the USB. Alright, so that part's done. Got some epoxy there. And wire ties hidden in there too to keep that from coming out with some epoxy. So that's done. I think I'm going to cut that off after all. Just cut that, whack that right on off and solder those pads directly. And I'm going to take this back part, just the faceplate, and well, I'm not sure yet. I'll get back with you on that. But I'm going to put some epoxy down in there where those solder connections are, just to reinforce that. So, see you in a minute. Okay, well, I don't recommend doing that. That turned out to be a mess. I totally wiped out a couple pads, but I was able to trace out where they're going, fortunately, so I think I can recover from this. But don't do that. I think I would have liked to have tried to have soldered to those points that I lopped off to this. So anyhow, we'll see how the next phase turns out. This is it. Believe it or not, it survived the smoke test. And my rework of those 2 broken pads and traces seem to have worked, and apparently we're the only casualties. So now it's just got to survive final assembly. I'm going to put some epoxy on that connector right there. I was afraid to epoxy before I gave it a test, but it's looking good so far. One little touch, that little slot right there, so I can get my cable through. That's where the connector will come out, or the cable will come out. That's where the connector was coming out. So I had to put a little slice in there, and then we'll throw them screws back on it and put it back together, put the top on while the epoxy's curing. I did that, and it'll just be a couple minutes. I'll put it back together. Alright, it's all ready to put back in the car. Maybe we'll pop it in tonight. It's dark out, but tomorrow I'll give a demo of it working. Alright folks, the moment we've all been waiting for. Well, actually I haven't, because I've been trying it all day and it's been working fine. Turn it on, and it's loading the flash drive. Not a problem. And I'll tell you what, this would have wigged the whole thing out. And there's nothing more frustrating than having 40-minute long MP3s and hundreds of them on a flash drive, and the thing just wigging out, especially when it was cold out. So I hope this helps anybody who's having a similar problem, maybe with this make and model, maybe with some other make and model that has a, you know, one of these displays that you know, come off, this face plates that come off. You know, hardwiring it will do the trick. And say hi, Duke. This guy right here, he goes on trips with me every once in a while, and he will periodically put his paw up on the dash, and I was always paranoid that he was going to whack the flash drive, or I was going to whack it, and it, like I said, it was flaky to begin with, so I think that was a good idea to do that while I was at it. So, thanks for watching. Dedicating this video in honor and memory of my longtime friend KB. He had an appreciation for this type of thing. A couple of weeks ago he passed away. We shared many synchronicities that included being born and raised in the same city just 3 days apart. 18 years later we both served in the Army and went through the same electronics repair training. Even so, we didn't really cross paths until we were stationed together in Augsburg, Germany, where we met. We lived, worked, and played together for about 2 years, and then went our separate ways. A few years later we reunited just by chance when we discovered that we were living literally 10 houses away from each other on the same street. It's the same small street I grew up on. From there on we remained close, and just like to say rest in peace, my friend. I'll leave you all with a video I shot of him performing at a show about 2 years ago.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to the Collingwood Arts Center Resident Artist Show. My name is KB. I'm going to do a little keyboard action for you here. In case you're wondering why I'm wearing the tux, well, I believe this next song will give you a hint.